The audio that you're about to listen to was taken from our Instagram live stream.
Welcome, ladies, gents, and our non-binary friends to Spoiler Sleepover, a Nerd Camp Network production. We are back again with a guest co-host right now because my co-host is still off doing his summer camp thing. I'm going to bring my guest co-host on. Really excited to have another member of the Nerd Camp Network coming on. So let's bring Greg in real quick.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Can't complain. I mean, I could, but...
When could you not, you know?
So how are things going over in good old Maryland?
Pretty well. So, yeah, Nerd Camp Network, you know, we do Camp KRUSTY. It's a Simpsons podcast with JB and Jordan. We've been, really inactive for a while, though. It's just trying to line up all three of our schedules is damn near impossible. It's been hard. I still do see them often. I see JB often. Usually just I'm able to just swing by after work because I work on the road. And yeah, I mean, things going well here. I had my kids this weekend. Well, just my son. My daughter was with their other grandma. But yeah, it was me and Orion this weekend.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to bring up Camp KRUSTY because it was funny. I got a coworker of mine into Camp Nightmare and Camp KRUSTY, and he's caught up on Camp KRUSTY and he's just like, they just give up? And I'm like, I have no idea.
It's just been hard. I mean, we still want to do it because not that long ago, I had some just great ideas for episodes or new segments we could do in our episodes. And yeah, JB and Jordan were like, sounds good. It's like, just whenever we're able to record. But, Jordan's making movies. JB's a new dad.
Yeah.
We all got our own stuff going on. So just trying to line it up. And they already have to line up stuff for Camp Nightmare. So to do a whole other night of recording is just hard to throw in the mix with everything we got going on. But, it's not over. It's just a matter of when we can do it again.
All right, good. So that's on here now. So my coworker will hear that. Like, all right.
Well, there's really shouts to Camp KRUSTY on Camp Nightmare and stuff. So yeah, it's just, JB and Jordan just, whenever they're able to get a time that works for me to come and record with them, we can. We did, the Patreon, the watch along.
Yes.
A couple months back, yeah. Because I was like, you know what, let's do that, and we'll worry about Camp KRUSTY another. But we made that work, so it's just a matter of when we can get a whole episode done. And like I said, I have ideas for new stuff that we can do.
Right.
Yeah.
I know the Simpsons fans out there will be excited. I'm one of the weird ones. I don't like the Simpsons. I've listened to the few episodes, but it's like I just like hearing you guys talk. I'm like, I'll put it on. I don't care for the Simpsons, but I'll listen.
Even if you're not a Simpsons fan, just hearing our takes on it.
Yeah.
If you enjoy our banter, because I mean, there's a lot of tangents, and I've been told that's the fun of it is when we're talking about something in The Simpsons, and then JB goes on this long-winded story out of nowhere that somehow ties to it, and it just steers the conversation. Next thing you know, we don't know what we're talking about. Oh yeah, Simpsons.
Yeah, I mean, I generally try and keep on topic. This podcast is a little bit easier because we're just talking about a single movie. Yeah. But I had JB on a couple of weeks back, and that first hour, we had a political conversation for an entire hour, and I was like, we haven't even talked about the movie yet. Okay, so before everybody knows what movie we're going to be tearing apart, completely tearing apart. already gotten some backlash, and people are really butthurt about looking at you, Brie. But
this the overrated movie that people like a lot.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I saw.
I watched it last night. I don't know what.
I know we both did the same thing. I hadn't seen it since it first come out.
Yeah.
And didn't like it. I didn't even finish the second one when it first came out. I was like, I'll give it a shot. Maybe it got better. And I think I watched maybe half of it, and I was like, screw this. I just shut it off. But yeah, we're talking about 2013's The Conjuring tonight.
Who I typically like.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give the movie this much. We'll say this before we get into it. The directing's amazing. Like, it's cinematically, it's a beautiful movie. There's a lot of
lighting,
like references to old horror in like the angling and certain shots, but the movie holds no substance, and it's all over the place, and it's just
all the tropes, just all of them.
All of them. And the fact that, so it blew my mind when I realized this movie came out in 2013. That was 10 years ago. There are 9 movies in the universe.
Nine. I haven't seen any of them except this, because seeing it the first time, I'll just say this. I was excited for it because I loved Insidious. And I was like, this is rated R. This is going to be even more nuts and horrifying and probably going to make me feel bad. And I'm excited. And I walked out of it like, man, I'd rather just watch Insidious. So the second one came out, I was like, no thanks. And then everything else they tied into it, like the Annabelle movies. I'm just like, nah, I'm good. So I didn't like The Conjuring, so I just stayed away. So
we open every podcast with a little banter like we just did, but we also like to do a little thing called What's Been Keeping You Up at Night. What's been keeping you up at night is just a selection of what you've been watching, reading, listening to, playing games. What's been keeping you up at night?
Well, the Godzilla channel on Pluto TV is just made life awesome.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's a 24-hour Godzilla. All kinds of movies throughout all the eras. It's fantastic. I'll be watching it, and I'll text Brandy about it, and turns out she's watching it, and then I get a message on here from Matt Murphy. He's sending me something. He's clearly watching it. I'm like, there's Camp Nightmare fam, like at least 3 of us at any given time watching the Godzilla channel. That's pretty awesome. Listening to Audible, I listened to recently The Shining. I finished, and I'm listening to Dr. Sleep now, and I plan on watching those both back to back after I'm done listening to them back to back.
Nice.
I gotta say, Will Patton reads Dr. Sleep, and him reading any Stephen King, absolutely listen to it. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I've been working my way through the Dark Tower audiobooks.
Okay.
Over the past year, just this year. I started this year listening to them, and I'm on the 3rd book right now, and they're long. It's 28 hours of listening. So
yeah, I enjoyed each one even more as it went on. I was just along for the ride, and then. Yeah, the second time around was just as fun because basically the whole story and can see it from that whole perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Frank Miller's reading in the first couple books is just so good.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, I've been in I did the whole trying to listen to some of Joe Hill's stuff too. I listened to Heart-Shaped Box on my way to Creature Feature this year, actually, and my God, is that an upsetting book?
Oh, really?
It is. Heart-Shaped Box is the wrong title for the book. I'm like, oh my gosh, it is. I mean, it's Joe Hill. Joe Hill's he's a great writer. It just he takes whatever his dad did and turns it up to 11 every single time.
He's got a big shadow to step out of,
Oh, seriously, and I feel like he's going too far. You're like, come back over to the light side just a little bit because Heart-Shaped Box is a tough one.
Yeah, I read or listened to any Joe Hill books, so I've been going through all kinds of King stuff over the last couple of years since I signed up with Audible. So if you were to recommend a Joe Hill book to start with, for one of my next Audible listens, which one would you recommend? I mean,
honestly, I think the best intro is Horns. The book is fantastic. The movie's garbage. Don't watch the movie.
Okay, I have interest in the movie. I didn't realize that was him either.
Yeah, I really liked Horns. I read Horns when it first came out. I really enjoyed it. I went and saw it in theaters when it came out, and I was like, wow, what a piece of shit. Why would you do this? Heart-Shaped Box is just, I mean, the characters are all, you feel for every single one of the characters. It's just the substance, everything that's happening throughout the story to all of the characters is, every time you think it's bad, it gets worse. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And
Sounds
my
like
God.
King.
Yeah. All right. So here's my spoiler of Heart-Shaped Box. The real title should be called Rape the Book.
That's upsetting.
Yeah. And it just keeps happening. You're like, this character was molested. And you're like, okay. And they're like, and that one had it worse. And you're like, oh. Like, let's not talk about this anymore. But before I get into what's been keeping me up at night, you also make music. Let's hear a little bit about the music you make, because I've been listening to some of your stuff on SoundCloud.
Oh,
really? And I really enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah, Hard House is a very niche electronic dance genre. I mean, it's been around over 20 years. It's been around since like the late 90s. Mm-hmm. Got really big in the UK, of course. That's where it's still mostly prominent. But I mean, there's artists producing it in like Australia, New Zealand, and there's me and like 3 other guys in the US that do it. So yeah, and actually, you know who's a big Hard House fan and even does some DJing of it is Nick Frost.
Really?
Yes. Like
wow.
This weekend now is it was a title as a party or as a label and a party called Tidy, but they do this festival called the Weekender out there in the UK. It was like a yearly thing in the summer. They just had it this weekend, but it was 2020, the one that they announced then. It said Nick Frost was going to be doing like a special guest set there. But of course, because pandemic, that Tidy never happened. And I don't know. Right. I don't think they worked it out where he could come back and DJ. But I was like blown away when I saw. I knew he was a fan. I knew because I'd seen stuff. You know, artists I follow, DJs out there, they would share like, "Oh, I got props from Nick Frost. Said he was listening to my mix while he was on set of this movie or whatever." So yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, it doesn't have a big following. Like you look at all the big, huge festivals around the world, and you know, that's not the type of music you're hearing there. But it has a very loyal fan base because especially out there in the UK where it was big in the clubs back then, everyone just has this nostalgia for it, and that's kind of what drives it. And even there was times 20 years ago here in the US in certain spots, in certain rave scene areas, whatever, like it got kind of big for a little bit and then just dropped. It faded from popularity, and then you know stuff like dubstep came around, and yeah, you know, so there's still people that dig it. And, you know, I'm one of them. And it's, you know, so that's what I do. And that's another thing that's because I DJ on Twitch a lot for different hard house labels and groups that put on streams. And that's another thing that's been keeping me busy. You know, like in terms of scheduling with stuff and all that. Yeah. A lot of hard house can be all kinds of, there's a whole different range of sound. Like there's stuff that's a little slower in the BPM. It's more kind of funky, like disco. You know, it's more kind of a happy vibe. And then you have stuff that's like way faster and just dark and evil. And that's stuff I like and I like making. You know, I made a track with a guy out in Arizona. He's putting a whole collaboration album together with some of the biggest names of hard house artists from all over the world, where every track is a serial killer. And we take samples from documentaries and stuff and kind of give you a little like true crime lesson on serial killers, but told through a horrific sounding dance track.
I'm here for that. Yeah, I mean,
I chose that our project.
Yeah. Yeah, your music reminded me of a lot of the music I used to snowboard to way back in the 90s. Because like I couldn't just put on like, you know, Korn or Limp Bizkit and snowboard. I needed something that helped me focus, and like house music, drum and bass, all of that stuff really was like my shit. So I was snowboarding that stuff. I've been trying to find some of like the old 90s drum and bass collections that they used to release, and I can't find them anywhere because that's the shit that I really enjoyed back in the day, and I've been getting back into it.
Yeah, AK-1200, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nice, dude.
Yeah. So awesome. We'll do a plug at the end of the episode so people can get over to your SoundCloud and stuff and follow you and listen, because I recommend. Everyone should be listening to what
Thank
they think.
you.
It's real good.
I love stuff for like all kinds of. I do a lot of video game remixes. I'm all about just being creative with what I'm sampling and referencing in a track and stuff. So thank you.
Yeah. No, I liked your the most recent track that you released. I listened to, and like I think it was the day or 2 days after you dropped it. I was like, this shit's fucking intense. I was into it. I listened to it like twice in a row. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is it. This is what I need more of this.
Hard House is a lot of it's just aggressive and in your face, and that's the kind of energy that gets me going. That's what makes me want to fucking rock out and have a
good So I'll jump into my quick what's been keeping me up at night. I started watching Secret Invasion.
Nice.
On Disney Plus. The third episode just went up today, and man, this show's good.
Dude, I'm loving it so far. I feel like you're telling Sam Jackson, dude, just go, do your thing, just do it.
For sure.
Have fun with this. I love it.
I'm not the biggest fan of the Marvel movies. Like, I watch them because they're fun, and that's about it. Because, like, I read the comic books growing up. I read them into, I would say, up to almost like the mid-ish 2000s, and then I fell off. But so far, from what I'm noticing, this is kind of close, a little bit more political than the actual Secret Invasion comic books were, but it's really good. Only 3 episodes in so far, and this episode, that ending, I was like, what the hell? I literally watched it right before it came on, so I was just like, what? You can't end an episode like that. What the
Every
fuck?
episode this season in this show has ended that way, where you're just like, wait, what?
This was the one that pissed me off because we won't get into it. We're not spoiling next shit.
We won't spoil it because that's the thing, and
I also started watching season 3 of The Royal Gemstones is out.
I've never seen that.
That's on HBO Max. Highly recommend if you like religious satire. The entire show is around a family that like owns and runs one of those like multi-billion-dollar churches, and it's control.
The send up of that whole thing and the concept of mega churches and that, then I'm for it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and this season they're not holding back. They haven't really even held back at all, but this season they're really going in. I also watched all of Dragula Titans on Shudder. I'm a huge fan of the Boulet brothers. I don't know if you've heard of Dragula or you've seen Dragula, but it's take RuPaul's Drag Race and meld it with horror, and that's what it is. It's brutal as hell. They really put everyone through the ringer on that show, and it's a lot of fun. And it's drag, but they really go to the point where, especially in this season, they were given, one of the challenges was to become a nautical creature, and one of them didn't even drag. They just made an entire latex merperson suit, like creepy face and gills and everything, just walked out. I was just like, I think you took the assignment too seriously on this one. This is a little intense.
It's like a reality competition show then? Like they do different, like you said, challenges to like make some sort of drag horror crossover?
Yeah, so
I loved Face Off if that was on Sci-Fi, dude.
And that's what it is. It's a mix between Face Off and RuPaul's Drag Race. And like, what was the name of that show? The show where people have to do gross things, like eat like cow's brain and swim with maggots. Yeah. So it's like a mix between those 3 shows. It's out of control. It's on Shudder. I want to say there's 6 seasons total on Shudder.
Wow.
So yeah, it's great. And then on Friday, I went with my wonderful girlfriend. Actually took me to the movies. She wanted to see Insidious, the new one. Speaking of Insidious, so we went and saw that. And honestly, like, first of all I've ever seen is the first one. I didn't know that this was the 5th movie in the series.
I've only seen the first 2, so
that's all you need. This movie takes place right after the second, or like years after the second one. But I don't know. Outside of the ending of the movie was fantastic. Like, I enjoyed everything about it, but the ending sucked. Like, the ending was terrible. Yeah,
that could be because maybe the ending had something that was tied to one of the other movies you didn't see, or was just not the right ending for this story?
I mean, so it does tie. She filled me in on like what I didn't watch, basically. I also did a little bit of digging, looked in a little bit further into certain things, but after the fact, they do bring in somebody from one of the other movies at the very end, but it's all the way they conclude the events that are unfolding throughout the movie is dumb. Like it's just stupid. They're just like, that's how you're gonna solve this problem? Like you couldn't have written a better ending. It's just
Yeah, they really phoned that one in.
Literally, it is. It's worth the watch. It's very well done. I enjoyed it. I have very few small complaints, but CGIing a face to make it look scary is not something I enjoy. That happens once in the movie. It's just not necessary. All right, enough of that. Let's jump into the episode. Let's shit on this movie because it's easy to do. Again, we are talking about 2013's The Conjuring, done by the amazing James Wan, who for some reason thought this was a good idea. Don't know why. The entire movie is based off of a single story with multiple other stories mashed in, based around Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are from Connecticut. I'm from Connecticut. I've met Lorraine and Ed multiple times.
Wow.
Yeah. So Lorraine's also in the movie. I don't know if you knew that, but like, she's the actual Lorraine Warren's in the movie. And
really? Like an extra role?
Yeah. So I will actually post I took a picture of the screen, but I'll post it in our story after the episode. But yeah, she's in one of the scenes during one of the lectures. She's the oldest person in the crowd for no reason whatsoever.
I didn't know that. I know they showed a picture of them from back then at like the end of the movie.
Yeah. No, it was funny too because I'd only seen the movie the once until today when I rewatched it. And as soon as that scene, I was like, is that Lorraine Warren? I was like, hold on. I had to rewind it. And I was just like, oh shit, that is Lorraine Warren. But I looked it up and it's like, sure enough, she was in the movie. I was like, oh, well, I'll be damned. I got a good eye. Like the camera like pans right past her. It's real fast. So yeah, anyways, the movie opens basically on the Annabelle case, which we now know those movies are multi-million-dollar movies. And
creepy doll, yeah.
Yeah, which is funny because the actual Annabelle doll is just a Raggedy Ann doll. Like, it's not this terrifying thing they created for these movies. It's a fabric doll.
Now, did I miss something? Tell me, in the beginning, so the movie really opens with like Annabelle. Like, it's a shot of Annabelle. It's them interviewing the people that had the doll that they said they thought it was a ghost of a child that died. And they said that they wanted in the Annabelle doll to be with them, and they said okay, and then weird shit starts happening. And they say, no, demons can't possess things. They can only possess people. Cut to, they have the room in the Warrens' house of all the evil objects that are possessed. So did they lie to these people, or do they just not, is it not consistent?
Well, so what they said was that they can't possess objects, but they can use them as conduits to then possess a person.
Okay.
Which is, it's made up. So here's the thing about the Warrens. As individual people, they were very nice, very, very sweet, kind people. They were also con artists. They faked a lot.
Glorifying grifters, pretty much, with this movie, right? Yeah.
Literally. These movies made them seem like superheroes, more or less. It's really brought them into the light so that more people knew. The movies continuing going with the name Warren being used throughout any of the Conjuring universe films is just a paycheck for their kids who are still around. That's the political side of shit that I just don't want to get into. But This is something I actually wanted to bring up and like potentially do with you. So we were texting before the episode, before we started streaming, and you had brought up the fact that this movie is all over the place. There's multiple stories happening all at the same time. And I literally, in my notes, there's like a 20-minute period where we go from Rhode Island to Massachusetts to somewhere else to Connecticut to Massachusetts back to Rhode Island. I'm like, yo, what is happening? It's so much.
The family has 5 daughters. The Warrens have a daughter. They're all brunettes. There's times where I'm like, what room of the house is this, and which kid is this? And I realized, oh, this is the Warrens' kid, and we're back in her house. I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
It all blended.
And that and that specific scene too, there's no motivation to let you know, like, oh, they brought something back with them. It just happens. And they're like, then they mention it. They're like, well, it attached to us. And you're like, when the fuck did it attach? Because you said that it was only in the house and attached to the family, and now it's attached to you.
Yeah. So like I said, roles feel inconsistent all over the place.
Yeah. So I feel like what we could do, instead of like doing an actual like shot by shot breakdown of the movie, we could actually just do each individual story at once, separated. So tell the Warren story and then just tell the family story. And we could probably be done with this pretty quick, because all I want to do is just bitch about this because it's not good.
All I wrote in my notes were my main points of things that bothered me about this movie.
So the main story itself is a horror movie trope since the dawn of time, basically.
Yeah, every haunted house trope you've ever seen before, you're going to see here.
Yeah. So the family moves into a new house, 5 daughters, husband and wife. I never even bothered writing down names. I think I wrote down one of the daughters' names because she's the one who keeps seeing Rory.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, yeah.
Kid who sees the ghost or has a ghost friend once they move in.
Yep.
The dog won't go in the house. Yeah, all the tropes. All of it there.
They move into the house. In my notes, it says, I actually put down, I'm like, family moves into haunted house. They have a pissy daughter, because you always need that one teenage kid who's just, well, I guess I'm not going to have any friends. I left for no reason. But they don't play into it for too long. You find out.
I feel like she was the least used of the daughters in terms of like the stuff happening in the house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You almost always expect that it's going to be the teenage daughter or the youngest daughter that's going to get the worst end of the stick when it comes down to the hauntings or possessions in a house. And everyone kind of got their own comeuppance when it came down to the things happening in the house, but the mom got the worst of it. And that basement sequence is really cool. That's the only thing I'll give compliment to. The basement sequence was kind of cool.
Well, I gotta say, I forget the actress that plays the mom in that family. She's been in all kinds of other stuff. I forget, but she was amazing, I thought, throughout the whole thing. Her performance was great. And nothing against Patrick Wilson or Vera Farmiga, because I typically, just like James Wan, I usually always love them. Anything they're in, I think they kill it. And they were asked to play this way. I just feel like they're unlikable in this movie. Like Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren, he just seems like a dick. Even when he's not trying to be a dick, he just seems like a passive-aggressive dick all the time. And Vera Farmiga comes off as a smug, kind of pretentious, just snob. Like, I don't know how else to put it. In terms of, I'm the medium, I'm the one who's connected, and I know more than everybody or whatever. That just sum up. I feel like they're unlikable, but I don't mean to detract. I just wanted to point out, because you mentioned the basement scene with the mom being possessed, and I thought her performance was really well done.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
And it's funny you bring that up, because for them, they were actually told to get into the character of them. So they spent time with Lorraine and Ed before Ed passed. They spent some time with them, like extended periods of time with them.
Really?
They went into what they call the museum, where they keep all the artifacts. They call it the museum. They got to go in and see everything and like be around it all. But they also watched like old interviews with them and listened to old recordings of like the recording that they do in the movie. That recording actually happened. They listened to all of it. So when they showed up on set and they were like, yep, we're embodying these people, that's how they are.
Wow.
When they're on a case, that's the way they get into those characters. But like, I've spoken to them outside of like a signing, outside of a case, like away from like the public eye, if you will. And they're genuinely just nice people, but they're actors. Like they do what they need to do or they did what they needed to do. They don't do anything anymore. They feed the worms, but
I feel like that's the directing, like, that was probably the direction for, like, specifically Patrick Wilson. It's just like, kind of playing off the passive aggressive, especially when he's talking with the dad their back and forth. He comes off very passive aggressive to him. I think it's just, because the motivation is you don't really want to be here because you're afraid for Lorraine. And
Right.
but what happened to her last time, which they reveal later. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also curious now because they mention 5 different cases, if I remember correctly, just the Warrens they're doing like these speeches at colleges throughout the movie.
Everyone's got their hands raised.
Yeah. And they have like genuine questions too. I'm just curious if any of the movies after that, like I know there's the Conjuring movies, there's only 3 of them, but the universe they've built on and they've done it because of each Conjuring movie.
Yeah.
So like Annabelle was introduced in the first Conjuring movie. Now there's all these Annabelle movies. I don't know what they introduced in the second one, but I'm sure it built into something else, like The Nun.
Yeah, The Nun was another, and there's more than one The Nun, right? So there's at least 2 of them, right?
The second one's not out yet. We actually just saw the trailer for it when we went to go see Insidious. Yeah. So they move into the house. They play this weird game. It's like hide and seek, but they're blindfolded, and they use claps to like.
For them to clap, they have 3 tries to get them to clap from where they're hiding and to find them. So you know this is going to come into play later when there's malevolence happening in the house or whatever.
So the kids are playing, and one of them tackles another one in the closet, knocks a board loose. They find out they have a basement.
A piano that's going to play by itself at some point. That's something that's down there.
When they first get there, all of the kids kind of go off and do their own thing. And the youngest, Cindy, that's the only name I remember, Cindy takes off into the backyard and ends up finding a music box by a lake next to this really creepy looking tree. Because, of course, once again, it's a haunted house. You need a creepy tree that kind of looks humanoid. You end up finding out that there's a ghost child attached to the music box. You can see in the mirror that's in the music box, which is a very interesting way of doing it because that was actually written, not the music box itself, but Lorraine had written about being able to see the other side through a mirror. And so that's the way that they introduced that idea that Lorraine had written, the real Lorraine had written about, was by doing it through a music box in the movie.
They have this kind of like, I feel like it's a cheap tension scare. It's effective, I guess. I just feel like it's cheap because she says, you look in the mirror and when the music stops, you see him behind you. So the music, of course, is ding, 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 ding. And you're looking, it's like zooming in on the mirror and you're just waiting for that music to stop. Because then something's going to pop out at you and you're, I feel like it's a cheap scare.
And that is my biggest complaint about this version of horror. The Conjuring, anything built off of this style of horror, it's not horror, in my opinion. It's jump scare movies.
Yeah.
Most of these movies aren't even written well. This is a good example of it. Just because there's multiple storylines happening doesn't mean that you've written a good story. It just means you've had multiple ideas and you just jammed them into one thing. And any of the moments that are scary are only scary because there's a loud noise that happens.
Yeah.
There is a moment in the basement that should have been and could have been really terrifying. It's when the lynched body, the feet fall down.
Yeah.
That noise is so unnecessarily loud. It was just like, if you had just dropped the feet down as is and made the sound of like a rope and the body and all that stuff and flesh slapping against wood, that would have been terrifying in itself. You didn't have to add the noise in.
Yeah, don't they? You hear the noise first, and then it shows that she can see the hanging body.
Yeah.
Another one I have, and it is also just something you see a lot in this era of horror, of mainstream horror, is invisible terror. It feels like this was, what if we do a Paranormal Activity movie, but it's only found footage for one scene? That's that's kind of how I see this movie, because something creepy happens, somebody gets dragged off, or they get lifted and you don't see what's there except for like a couple times you'll see it, and then it jumps at them, cut to what's going on, they get there, they're fighting something invisible. I feel like that's so played out effectively. Like Poltergeist, of course, has things moving by themselves. It can be done well. It's just when it's the whole movie and it's just an invisible thing, it gets boring.
there is one. There's the one sequence outside where, for some reason, Lorraine is doing this family's laundry, which I still don't understand why she was doing the family's laundry.
Again, it was like, are they home or are they still at these people's house? I'm like, I don't know where we are.
But there's that moment where the sheet falls down and hits something that's invisible, and you see a body shape. That's kind of cool. Then it goes away, and the blanket or the sheet goes up and hits a window, and then it moves and reveals somebody in the window. I was like, okay, it's kind of dope. But then it immediately cuts to just this bullshit moment where the whatever witch or the bureau monster, whatever the hell it was on top of the moat. And I'm like, you ruined it. A good moment in this movie immediately. Within like 2 seconds, you're like, yep, this is terrible. I'm like, such a weird way to show a possession, too.
Yeah, like that.
So
the mouth vomiting into the mouth. And
it's so fast, too. They don't linger on it, which I feel they should have. They should have done more of whatever that red stuff that came out of the demon or ghost's mouth. We never find out really what it is. They don't say.
Ectoplasm, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, if we want ectoplasm that looks good, another not good movie, A Haunting in Connecticut, did it really well. Like,
I gotta say, that's a movie I'd rather watch than this.
I agree. It's still not a good movie, but it's better than this, because at least it's one cohesive story the entire time, and all of the characters are weirdly likable. It's hard to like a single character in this movie, even though we get so much background, so much backstory on everybody. You still can never connect to a single character throughout this movie.
You don't even know all their names. Like, you can't remember all their names. Like, there's April and Cynthia. I don't know who's who.
Yeah. Then they jump into the investigation portion of, finally, the Warrens see enough and witness enough. They're like, all right, we're going to investigate. And they set up in the house, and we're then introduced to even more characters. Like, there's the pun intended pig-headed cop who's just an asshole for no reason. Like,
they got to have their Agent Scully, you know.
Yeah,
because he's pretty much the guy who doesn't believe it, you know. And then you have like Tech Guy, you know, he's the guy with he helps with all the equipment. I don't remember the names.
I don't either. I literally remember, the only reason I know the Warrens' names is because I know the freaking Warrens. Yeah. Other than that, I wrote down Rory and Cindy because Cindy was the only one that was needed for me to write in my notes, because she's kind of the conduit of everything that happened throughout this movie. Like, she brought Rory back into the house. I'm pretty sure that ghost was outside and hadn't been outside for a minute.
In a pointless investigation that Lorraine makes, we find out that it's not just the house, it's the land, which isn't just the property as it is now, but it beyond into other people's property where it all belonged to this supposed witch.
Yeah. And that was, there was a witch. I actually wrote that down because I was just like, well, I know that this is true.
They think it was really a witch's house.
Yeah. So the whole thing is, they say that it's a woman that was accused of being a witch, sacrificed her baby, and then hung herself. She killed herself and said it was all for Satan. And that's the other thing about the Warrens, is you got to keep in mind, is that the Warrens were extremely religious, like extremely religious. So they would always do that and make sure that they bring religion into everything. Everything was a demon, not a ghost.
See, that's my other biggest complaint with this whole movie, is that don't get me wrong, like The Exorcist, I feel is just a classic masterpiece of a film, but just for the most part, a lot of these religious horror things implies on the fact that, you know, God and the power of Jesus is like real, and their demons are real, and like this movie, it says it's based on true stories, and you hear this story about someone who was the descendant of a woman who was burned in the Salem witch trials, who was a witch. And like, I just don't, like, you know, are we still believing that they were outright to burn women for witchcraft back in the 1600s? Or, you know, we have to pretend that, you know, they were actually, there was validity to that? Or, you know, like, can we just say, you know, it was wrong and they shouldn't have done it? And there were no actual witches being burned back then. Like, so to imply that the witch trials, like, burned a real witch, I don't know. That bothers me.
Oh no, absolutely. Because there were no any witch burning that ever happened when witches were believed to be a real thing were all in the UK. It was overseas. The Salem witch trials, any of the witches that were killed by hanging. There wasn't a single witch ever burned in the Salem witch trials. They were all hung or beheaded. Nobody was set on fire. So they go into the history, just basically that the next people were a mom that was possessed and her son drowned, and then she went into the basement and killed herself. The son was Rory. And then there was another one where the maid killed somebody.
Was she the one that shows up like, look what she made me do?
Yeah, that's the cop witnessing something for the first time and becoming a true believer.
Yeah.
That cop ended up, that's why it was like, it's sort of important for the story if you care, but like that police officer actually ended up working with the Warrens the entire time that the Warrens were actively working. That guy was with them the entire time. Like he was first on any case with them and like got the okay from the cities that they worked in and stuff. He was like, I'll do all the policing.
Sounds like that. Yeah. They can use police resources to their benefit.
Yeah, like shotgunning a door handle off so you can get into a house. That scene was so unnecessary too. It's just like, dude, just kick the door down. He's like, get out of the way, I got a gun. Yeah, so more or less, we find out that the mom is possessed by the witch, and the Warrens get the family out of the house. They're like, get out of the house, we're going to put you in a motel. Even though they specifically said, no matter where you go, it's going to follow you.
Yeah, they said it's like stepping in gum. It's like you take it with you. So what's getting out of the house going to do? Like, they didn't know what they were.
Yeah, and the mom's possessed, so she takes the two youngest back to the house, and the Warrens get back there just in the nick of time. Mom's got the youngest with some scissors, about to kill Cindy, and doesn't kill Cindy, and somehow Cindy ends up in the floor under the kitchen.
Yeah, I don't. The floor, under the floor and in the walls doesn't even make sense in this movie either. Talk about everything that's inconsistent. Because I can't tell with the geography of this house. And when people are trying to figure out where on the other side of the wall or under the floor they are, I'm like, how am I supposed to know?
Yeah, no. There's activity that continues to happen around this wardrobe, and the mom and Cindy at one point in time are playing the clapping game, and she goes into the room where the wardrobe is, and the wardrobe opens by itself, and she says, clap again, and these two adult hands appear and clap, and we find out there's like a hidden passageway inside, and it's got a collection of fucked up shit from the past thing. The noose is in there, and then Lorraine falls through the floor directly into the basement, and for some reason nobody can figure out that she's in the basement.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Patrick Wilson's like, Ed, he's running around like banging on the walls. Lorraine, like he's trying to find her. And I'm like, wouldn't you know that she's all the way at the bottom? Just go to the basement. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It makes more sense. This house, how come no one knows where anything is?
The funniest part is I was watching it throughout the movie, and I went back where that room is based, and if she were to fall through, she would have landed like in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Because it's the walls here, and then the way that the house is set up, the kitchen's below that bedroom. So she would have just like fallen through the ceiling and just been like there. But for some reason, it's connected to the basement. So logic makes no sense.
Anything involving the geography of that house, I was like, forget it. I couldn't even tell. I was like, the scene when it's the Warren's daughter walking down the steps, and I'm like, wait, which girl is this? And what the hell is this? Why haven't we seen this wallpaper before? I'm like, oh wait, this is the Warren's house. So I'm like, I didn't even realize.
Yeah, they hit a point in the movie where they just stopped giving us like subtitles of where we were. They were just like, you'll figure it out.
You've been here before.
They give you subtitle in the beginning to let you know where they are, and then they give you a whole like backstory with dates, and then the movie card pops up that says The Conjuring, and then we're told we're in Rhode Island, and then we're told we're in Massachusetts, and then we're told we're back in Connecticut, and then we're told we're back in Rhode Island, and then they just stop telling us. Like, it's just like, good luck. It's all you now.
You figure it out.
Which is even funnier because how quickly the Warrens got from Connecticut, where they live, to Rhode Island. No, like I know that drive. That's like a 2-hour. That's a 2-hour drive. It's not a short drive. Man, there's so many, so much about it. Like, if I had not grown up in that area, it would almost seem believable, because when you look at New England, it seems like everything's so small, but everything, the states are small, but everything's far. Like, you've got to, like, I live in New Hampshire, and to go back to Connecticut, it's over 2 hours. It's not like I'm in the car for 45 minutes. I'm in the car for over 2 hours to get back to Connecticut. So
I've seen so many like movies and TV shows where there's a character who's got to go from like DC to New York or vice versa, and they do it like in the same day. I'm like, no, that'd be like an all day thing, man. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I get that it's movie logic and it's not supposed to.
What, 4 hours? Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's fine. That'd be like if I were to travel, like I have done multiple times, or travel from here to Maryland, and I made it in 2 hours. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's 10 hours.
Yeah.
I made it in 7 hours, but I was speeding, and I left at like 3 a.m, so there's no one on the road. But it's still a drive. There's so much bad about this in so many different ways.
Even the scares, I don't think are that good. Like,
No.
I just feel nothing about it, and I feel like any of the good tense moments, I feel were just cheaply done.
I did enjoy a lot of the cinematography, just camera angles.
The lighting is really cool all throughout it.
I mean, James Wan just has a way with a camera. It's just plain and simple. He knows what he's doing. And I noticed a lot of like hat tips and homages to horror from the past in the movie. The Shining is a reference, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even Evil Dead. There's so many references to other horror movies from the past just in camera work. That's it. The movie still sucks, but it was a cool shot. Like, it's just,
you can have stuff that looks cool, and some of the score is pretty good as well. There's kind of I don't know exactly what kind of horns they are, but that just kind of just really offsetting tone and there's a lot of that, and it's really unsettling. So there's like, sound design, there's musical score, there's a lot of stuff that is technically, sensory-wise good. Like, it looks cool, it sounds cool. It's just, like the story, the plot, and the whole point of this thing is just a no for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I can prove this movie's overrated. It's rated R. Why? It literally is the wrong rating. This could have been a PG-13, right? Like, I don't remember hearing really any bad language. There's no gore.
No.
But why is this an R-rated film?
I don't know.
I was like, oh, that was PG-13, but this is the opposite. Like, this would be like, oh, this is R, Yeah. I genuinely thought it was a PG-13 movie until I finished it and looked, and I'm like, how did it, unless they consider when the possessed mom bites the cop's face and the blood spurts out, and all of the quick little shot that could have passed in a PG-13 movie. I guess, is Nick biting a certain, like, does that make an R-rated criteria? I don't know.
I don't know if it's that or like child torment.
Yeah, child endangerment. She's got the scissors towards the kid's face. Is that just too much for a PG-13? I don't know.
Yeah.
Mama was PG-13. There was kids in that, right? Like, she was gonna toss the one off the cliff or something, right? Like,
that era, like the 2010s, was a weird era for horror and rating horror too. There were PG-13 movies that should have been R, and then there's this R movie that's clearly a PG-13 movie. And to be completely honest, if they took out that one cheek biting sequence, it could have been a PG movie. There's nothing in the movie that I would ever consider R. There's no nudity. I don't remember any language at all.
If there was an F-bomb, it was so subtle. It just it didn't even register. Like I don't recall any F-bombs, or there might have been like a shit or a damn it or whatever, but like who cares? Like that's all in PG-13 movies anyway. It'd have to be like an F-bomb or a cunt word or whatever, to get an R rating. And even those words that can say on TV now, if they just say, "Hey, we got bad language."
Yeah.
So I don't understand why it's rated R. So in the terms of being overrated, in terms of it's not the literal actual rating that it should be. I don't know if that's supposed to make people think it was extra scary.
I mean, it very well could have been. I don't know what the rating for the second or most recent, the third one are. I don't know if they're R's or PG-13s because
maybe it's better. Well, I don't know. All I know is after I saw the first one, I was like, well, I'm not going to see it anymore. And because they had the second one, I remember a lot of people being, oh, it's so good. I'm like, well, people said the first one was good, and I wasn't impressed. I liked Insidious more. I'd rather just wait, And I did see the second Insidious in the theater, and those are the only two I saw of that.
These movies, I don't quite understand why they're so popular. They don't offer anything new or anything good to the genre of horror. It's cheap and
uninteresting.
Yes, very uninteresting. It also gives horror a bad rep and name. I feel there's horror supposed to give you more. JB and Jordan always put it really well, is that there's almost always in most horror, there's some sort of political message being said, whether it has to be about, equal rights in sexuality, Hellraiser and stuff like that, or just the political as a whole with like the Purge movies. This doesn't give us any. Like, it just
God is real and you should pray or you're going to be possessed or whatever,
Exactly.
See, yeah, I to me that's why I think this is just a generally overrated movie, dude, because you can do there's stuff that are like it that are better. There's better haunted house horror, like Haunting of Hill House came out after this, but I feel like significantly better than this in terms of a haunted house story.
And that's even has its own message about addiction. Like, It's giving you something. You're walking away learning something and knowing something and getting to know, the life of an addict.
Yeah. And there's his character and there's other characters that all had their own kind of trauma from growing up in that house that we learn about like through each episode. And and there's a statement to be said about trauma in general there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not really any of that in this. Like, there's a big thing about like, oh, Lorraine saw something once and it scared her, or she wouldn't leave the room for 8 days. And like, but that's just one thing. It's not common. It's not saying anything about trauma people have encountering something horrible or in their faith or their religion or whatever.
Yeah. There's a movie that came out this year. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but it's about a guy that's incarcerated who's possessed. He was like a serial killer, and he was possessed. And I wanted to see it because it seemed interesting, because it just seemed very... The entire movie was just an interview. And then it came out that it was literally funded by a Christian company. And then... it was a whole, like, indoctrination through horror. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like... So I haven't watched it. I wanted to. I don't remember what it's called. It's driving me nuts, but I'll remember.
It sounds like the beginning of a movie called Fallen with Denzel Washington, if you've ever seen that. Because that's how that movie starts.
I have seen Fallen. I forgot about that movie.
Oh, yeah. Cool ending. It has a cool little twist ending, I'll say. I dug the ending of that.
Yeah. See, I feel like I'm already down the rabbit hole. After rewatching this, after I said I'd never watch it again, that I kind of want to dive deep into the universe, if you will, and start watching everything. So I did willingly watch La Llorona, which is part of the Conjuring universe, and did enjoy it. I did like it. But
if I recall, one of the very first Camp Nightmare episodes, that movie had just came out, and Jordan had seen it and was talking about it. And I think he said he enjoyed it, but he would have enjoyed it more if they didn't purposely tie it to the Conjuring universe.
There's that, and the fact that it's whitewashed as fuck.
Oh yeah, he said that as well.
Yeah. It's extremely enjoyable. Honestly, like, they stick very close to the legends and the story of what La Llorona is or was, and you get characters you like, you get to know them, you get to feel for them. The intentional jump scares are few. For the most part, it's something lurking in the background, the same way the Insidious films kind of do that. It's behind you feeling.
Mm.
Which is why the Insidious movies are, at least the first one and the most recent, are so good. Because you get that feeling and you get to see there's something behind you. You're not entirely sure what it is.
See, Insidious, the first time I saw it and every time I see it, there's stuff that just gives me the goosebumps and makes the hairs on my arms stand up every time. Because it's that good and it's that well directed. I don't get any of that from The Conjuring. Like I said, the tension and the scares just feel cheap and they don't feel earned either. Like I don't know what is supposed to be scary about this movie. I don't know.
Yeah. Possession films don't really do much for me outside of The Exorcist. But The Exorcist is more of a study on religion versus almost indoctrinating people and being like, come on over. We're good over here.
And The Exorcist is just so good at everything The Conjuring fails at, man, because there is a lot of stuff going on. There isn't as many storylines, but there's a few things, but they are tied together. And there's so much if The Exorcist, if you watch it over and over again, there's things you pick up on, especially like the scene that has almost no dialogue in the beginning where the excavation. There's so much you can pick up on that. There's so much like symbolism and metaphor into this, what's going on with this demon. And there's all kinds of that in The Exorcist. It's just such a really in-depth movie where you can literally like just analyze and analyze. I feel like like you said, there's really no substance in it. There's nothing you can like dive into and see like how all kinds of stuff is foreshadowed or, like in The Exorcist, there's shots of the demon, the pale face of the monster hidden all throughout the movie.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, The Exorcist does the building of suspension so perfectly that you don't, if it's your first time or even second time watching The Exorcist, like my first few times, you don't notice a lot of it until it's like, you're like, why do I feel so tense right now? Then you go back and people point it out to you and you're like, oh, you've been being shown these things the entire movie and you just didn't know. Like you knew, but you didn't know.
Just the central thread throughout the whole thing is just, superb.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that at all with the Conjuring, man. And I feel like that's what they were going for, and it just wasn't there. Yeah, no. James Wan can, make an awesome shot and do really cool things with lighting, but it's just without anything else there. And like I said, without any scares that are effective or good, I don't see why this is, like, you and I are both baffled as to why this movie's popular.
And that's the thing about my brain is I want to make sense of things that don't make sense. So now I want to watch the rest of them because I want to figure out why. But I feel like it's like me with the Marvel movie. Outside of Iron Man and Iron Man 2, I haven't really loved any of the Marvel movies. Like, I just keep watching them because I'm like, well, I've watched the past 20 or how many there have been. I might as well just keep going. It's just, I don't take much away from any of the Marvel movies, except for, huge exception, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Oh,
holy shit.
Dude, I cried like 6 or 7 times.
Same. Oh my gosh. The opening alone, because I didn't watch any trailers for it, so I didn't know what story they were going off of, because I read this comic book wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, as soon as it opened, I was like, no. I was like, immediately, I'm like, the movie just started. This isn't fair. My God, was that movie great.
Oh, yeah. Dude, James Gunn, he just knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He understands.
I'm glad that he's working on both sides, like doing DC stuff and Marvel stuff, because he just does he does the justice that we deserve for both properties when it comes down to the films. Like the second Suicide Squad film was just awesome from start to finish.
Comic books, dude, and he understands how to translate comics from page to screen. Like, actually, because Orion's been wanting to go through and watch all the, MCU films when he's over with me. And we picked up where we left off a while back. And it was the first Guardians of the Galaxy. And we watched that last night. And just, there's so many just shots of action that, I feel like these are comic book panels.
Yeah.
Like, this is exactly what a splash page would look like if this was a comic, or, this back and forth shot between Quill and Ronan. Like, I could see those as comic panels. And, like, that just shows James Gunn, just like I said, understands how to translate from page, like, of the comic to making it into film. And Suicide Squad, of course, was great. And I have faith that whatever he's doing with DC and Superman, I think, he's going to be at least some hope for them, because, like, everything they tried with, like, the Zack Snyder films and everything just didn't work. And I was never really a fan of any of those, honestly.
See, I'm on the other side. I really did enjoy them because of how gritty they were. And I was hoping for more. Like, I know I'm the black sheep on this one, but, like, I want more Batfleck. Like, I love Ben Affleck as Batman.
I think he was one of the best things about, like, Dawn of Justice and Justice League. And I feel like he got robbed of a solo, man, and we deserved one, I think. I think him as a solo Batman in a film, like it's his Batman film, that would have been great.
Yeah.
Like, we could have at least got one after BVS, or there honestly should have done one before. Just the pacing on their universe was just not right. But a lot of that was just, pressure to catch up to Marvel, and because they were already so far ahead with the Avengers and everything. But, I hope, like, what you see with James Gunn, like the Peacemaker, which was his follow-up to, like, the Suicide Squad movie, like, he just leans into this, like, idea of, like, this is a universe that knows superheroes are a thing and they're everywhere. And he did that in Peacemaker a lot. And I think he can take the DC universe and make it its own thing that's going to make it enjoyable and make it have its own tone that's separate from Marvel as well. I think he'll be able to separate.
Yeah.
So I'm eager to see what he's got, because, Guardians 3 was just, he didn't have to go that hard. Like, he could have gone half as hard and it would still been as good, and a good, like, exit for that trilogy and Marvel for him. And dude, he just went there with it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just, I mean, being able to be on the side of knowing who he is, like you and I are, seeing him go from Chroma to where he is now, is one of the coolest come-ups that I've seen any celebrity writer, director, or anybody do in forever. And it's cool to see that he did it all on the back of Troma.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind.
And it's fun. I didn't notice before. I totally caught it this time, though. Like, Lloyd Kaufman, Uncle Lloydie, is in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's in the prison scene, one of the prisoners yelling when Gamora.
He's also,
so I was like, oh shit, he's right there. I was like, look, it's Uncle Lloydie.
he's also in. He's in the first one too. He's at the bar. He's in all three of the movies. So he's Gunn's Stan Lee. Like, he's in all three of them. I saw him in the third one, but I couldn't. It was quick, because in the first one he's sitting at a bar and the camera literally pans past him. He's sitting there and he's staring off, and you see his side profile. But I know he's in the third one, and I'm pretty sure I saw him, but it was another one of those, like, moves real quick past the camera thing.
Yeah.
My big hope is that he keeps putting Howard the Duck in these Guardians movies. I love the original Howard the Duck movie. I think it's hilarious. It's amazing. There's duck boobs, which is freaking hilarious.
Is there, like, puppet sex in that movie?
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I just know it gets really weird with the puppets and the animal-human relationship.
Yeah. It's streaming on something. I want to say it's streaming on Hulu. Like, it's worth the watch. It's hilarious.
Tubi's had it. Tubi's probably
Tubi has everything.
Yeah.
But I really want them to do a Howard the Duck movie. Just give us a Howard the Duck movie. Come on, Marvel. Like, you can do this, and it can flop, and you're still okay. You've done so well. Marvel's done so well for themselves up to this point that you can at least do one movie that's potentially not going to work. But if you have James Gunn doing it, it'll be awesome.
Dude,
Like,
Guardians of the Galaxy was going to be that. That was them for, that's what that movie was when it first came out. Because it was a not very well-known team or property Marvel's had, and, they didn't know if it was going to be a hit. And that's why, like, we also watched Age of Ultron. That's why Hulk disappears at the end of that movie, because the plan was, in case Guardians of the Galaxy does not do well, they were going to say Hulk went to space and he's going to be in the next Guardians movie, so people want to go and see it because it has the Hulk. So they always had a plan to use the Guardians, but that's why they took Hulk off Earth, because they wanted him as like a backup plan in case people didn't like the Guardians movie and it didn't become a big hit, because they didn't know how it was going to go.
I was really hoping they were going to do World War Hulk, because that comic book run was amazing. And
the Hulk stuff's weird because Universal has the rights to do solo Hulk movies, so they haven't been able to do one since the one with Edward Norton.
Yeah.
They can still use Hulk as a character in all the other movies, but the deal is that in terms of like a solo Hulk film, can't do it. So that's why they didn't do Planet Hulk as a movie. They did it as kind of a side plot on Thor Ragnarok. But yeah, World War Hulk would be something really cool to see. And I mean, the fact that they still have General Ross in the MCU, even though William Hurt, who played him before, passed away. They recast him with Harrison Ford. He's going to be showing up as the fact that they want to keep that character of General, or he's, I guess, Secretary Thunderbolt Ross now, since they're keeping him around, might show that they have plans to do more stuff with Hulk going forward.
That would be amazing. What okay, so there is one of the Marvel properties teased Scar, the son of the Hulk. Which one was it?
Are you talking about Hulk's child?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's She-Hulk.
She-Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
I want that too. Because that's his comic book run was so weird, but like so enjoyable to read, because it was just out of nowhere. You're like, it's just teenage Hulk running around just destroying shit. I'm here for anything Hulk related all the time.
I love She-Hulk. I don't care what anybody says. I think She-Hulk was exactly what it needed to be. If you understood the character from the comics, especially back in the 80s, like it nailed it. And the actress who played her nailed it. And I enjoyed it. I don't care what anybody says.
Well,
and I think just because of what they've introduced, the Hulk shows up at the end. Oh, by the way, this is Scar. And like I said, they're keeping Thunderbolt Ross around. I feel like they are going to be planning for something Hulk related down the line. That would be awesome.
I'm 1000% here for all of that. Well, She-Hulk was fantastic. I think I only ever heard one person that I knew complain about it, and I was just like, it's not for everybody. Yeah. Like, I don't understand how it's not for everybody.
It's comedy, and there's a lot of fourth wall breaking.
Yep.
And I don't think people didn't know how that would work in the MCU, so they see this character and think it's all just a gimmick, and that was her thing. She was always like before Deadpool. Mm-hmm. She-Hulk was the character who could break the fourth wall, be aware that she was in a comic book, talk directly to the reader about what's going on. Yeah. Yeah.
It was good stuff. All right. Well, I think what this comes down to...
stuff that's better than The Conjuring for most of this.
I knew that this was going to happen.
It's just painful to talk about. There's just nothing else to say other than just, I don't get it.
No. And that's totally fine. I honestly did not expect that this episode was going to stay on track at all.
Yeah, the thing is, you guys can go through spoil each thing in the movie. I'm like, I don't know really to spoil. I'll just say watch something better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's better haunted house movies. There's better religious horror movies. There's better movies from this period in horror that are better than The Conjuring. It's overrated. That's all I'm going to say.
The end of every breakdown that we do, every spoiler we do, we always do a rating. It's always on a scale of 1 to 10, and we use something from the movie. So on a scale of 1 to 10 disembodied clapping hands, how many clapping hands would you give this movie?
I would get, here's the thing. Normally I would for this, I would say 3, because I typically like James Wan. I like Patrick Wilson. I like Vera Farmiga, but just, I can't give it 3. I got to take 1 off because this movie's that bad. So I'm going to give it a 2. 2 claps.
That was perfect. Yeah,
I'm removing a point for such a bad movie. So that's it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on the 2 clap rating. It just the cinematography and the lighting and the sound, like the music, the score, that deserves the 2. But outside of that, it's just, it doesn't.
Yeah, like I was said, all the invisible terror, and then when you do see the thing, and it's just a white gown girl with some stuff on her mouth and her face, and it's not interesting. It's uninspired, not scary, and so yeah. I can't even give the makeup and effects that much credit. But you're right, cinematography, lighting, music, sound, all cool.
Yeah. So at the end of our episodes, we like to thank people. I say it every week, and I will say it until we, for some reason, don't do this anymore. But the reason we want to thank people at the end of every stream and every episode that we do is because if it weren't for Camp Nightmare, if it weren't for JB and Jordan and Bree, this wouldn't exist. I would never have met Jason Michael. I would never have convinced him to come on and start this with me. I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't know most of the guest co-hosts I've had on here. They've built, JB and Jordan and Bree have built this amazing community, and
we are quartet.
Yes. So I always thank JB, Jordan, Bree, Matt. You're out there. We love you.
I love them as well, of course. And Matt's been sending me really cool stuff, especially when he's watching Godzilla channel. So
yeah,
shouts to him.
I'm jumping on the Godzilla channel when we're done with this.
You got
it. I need something good. Good to watch.
I said I'm pretty sure there's at least 3 other Camp Nightmare fan watching it when you turn it on. It'll probably be me and Brandy though.
Perfect. So is there anybody else you'd like to thank?
Well, thank you, of course, for having me on, and Jason, for both you guys doing Spoiler Sleepover and being part of the Camp Nightmare Nerd Camp Network, and of course, thank you to my awesome, amazing girlfriend, Brandy. That's Heart Cave Creations watching us. You can follow her. That's her jewelry business. If you want to get some beaded jewelry, some hemp jewelry, it's all made by her own 2 hands. And yeah, she's awesome. Wouldn't be doing the things I'm doing without her support, for sure. I will also give shouts and thanks to my friends Tim, who goes by Slenderman, and my friend John Force, who are both Hard House producer collaborators with me. Like I said, I've made tracks with them. Stuff you've heard, like me and John did a Thing-inspired track. That was like our Halloween track last year. Had a blast with that. Tim and I frequently collaborate. Sometimes he'll just shoot me a Zoom link. I'll sit in while he's making something and, just give him, hey, try this. Like one time I just helped him find samples for stuff he wanted to use in a scary track. But, frequently working with those guys, and I wouldn't be at the level in my production without working with them and a few others. So thanks to them, of course. And yeah, dude, and thank you for, listening to my stuff on SoundCloud, man. That means a lot.
You make good music. Of course, I'm going to listen to good music. So before I get into my thank yous, what is your plug under SoundCloud so that people can go and listen?
It's SOULARTRAX, which I got to spell this, because Solar is my name. I've had it since I started DJing back in 2002. I've just always had it. It's Solar, spelled with a U, like soul, so SOULAR, and then Trax is TRAX.
There you go.
Yep.
So you can listen to all of Greg's stuff under SOULARTRAX on SoundCloud and do it, because my damn, is that stuff good.
Energy, dance music with some video game stuff in there, and some maybe some horror stuff. I love doing all that, and it's fun to make. Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and just being as pissed off about this movie as I am, and I have been forever. It was great. you definitely have to come back on. Next time, we'll do a good movie. But yeah, thank you so much for being on here. Thank you for having us part of the Nerd Camp Network also, because I know that it's you and JB's.
Dude, and I love that it's growing with like actual like, you know, fam. That's so cool. Like you said, like you be here without that, you know, kind of bringing you and Jason and all of us together. And just seeing everything grow and just being able to do stuff like this, it's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So hell yeah,
I've been loving it. Yeah, and I'm gonna throw it out there too. I want to thank my girlfriend also. Thank you for so much. She's been watching this entire time. She's been super supportive, giving me the space that I need on Sundays to like focus on all of this and get it done, and just being a rock and helping me through some of this stuff too, especially today.
Good thing.
Yeah, it's not only just a good thing to have, it's part of the fun. So when you've got it, it's amazing. But yeah, so thank you so much, dude.
Of course, Roman. Thank you.
We got to have you back on, and we'll do something good.
Absolutely. I'm all for the Nerd Camp crossover.
Yeah, we should. Jason, Michael, and myself should come on and do an episode. Forget JB and Jordan. Have us come on. We'll do an episode of Camp KRUSTY.
But yeah, let's pick some episodes to talk about.
That'll be awesome. I'm down for it. Yeah, that just means I need to watch some more Simpsons. So
can't go wrong with Treehouse of Horror, dude.
Those are the ones that I do enjoy. They're hard not to like.
Well, dude, that's what's funny, but that's kind of how Camp KRUSTY started, is because it was a Patreon episode a couple of years ago where for Halloween, for October that year, they were like, let's do Treehouse of Horror. We'll talk about like the first 10 Treehouse of Horror episodes. And that's when we realized, yeah, me, JB, and Jordan sure can talk about The Simpsons a lot. So that's kind of where Camp KRUSTY was born.
That was such a great Patreon episode, too.
Oh, thank you, man.
All right, brother. Well, we'll talk soon.
We will.
Thank you again. You have an awesome night.
You too. Thanks for having me on. Sleepover spoiled.